Teste, teste. Oi, oi. Teste. Essa, cara. Oi, oi, teste, teste, teste.
aprofundar toda essa discussão, prefeito, mas eu não sei, repetindo, se você teve condições de ter tempo de ter visto a pesquisa, mas Fortaleza realmente é tudo isso que a gente representa, o grande crescimento que nós tivemos na nossa cidade nos últimos 10 anos. Hoje Fortaleza é a quinta cidade populacional, quer dizer, do país, é a segunda do Nordeste, aprofundar toda essa discussão, né, prefeito. Mas eu não sei, repetindo, se você teve condições da cidade, de ter tempo de ter visto a pesquisa, mas Fortaleza realmente é tudo isso que a gente representa, o grande crescimento nos últimos 10 anos, nós tivemos na nossa cidade nos últimos 10 anos. Hoje Fortaleza é a quinta cidade populacional. Qual a sua visão nos últimos anos? É a segunda Fortaleza se transformou, toda essa discussão, prefeito. Essa pesquisa, mas eu não sei, repetindo, se você teve a sensação da cidade, de ter tempo de ter visto a pesquisa, mas Fortaleza realmente é tudo isso que a gente representa, um grande crescimento.
Um grande prazer participar desse debate nos 10 anos.
Hoje Fortaleza é a quinta cidade. Qual a sua visão do país? Assim, Fortaleza se transformou
para muitos de nós que estamos tomando decisão todo dia. Também é um prazer debater com o João Azevedo, dizer que eu sou filho de 2 estatísticos, Azevedo. Meu pai é professor de estatística, minha mãe é formada em estatística, servidora da UFC, então não poderia apreciar mais do que já aprecio o trabalho que o IBGE tem feito ao longo desses anos. Utilizei, inclusive, um banco de dados do IBGE para minha tese de doutorado, o modelo que montei. Então, além de apreciador, sou usuário dos serviços do IBGE, que, na verdade, acumula aí a história numérica, o retrato demográfico do Brasil, que tem se transformado tanto ao longo das últimas décadas. E Fortaleza, não diferente, mudou junto, né? Produto da urbanização crescente, vivenciada no Brasil e também no estado do Ceará, mas produto também de um crescimento econômico para além dos padrões médios da região Nordeste. Isso fez com que nos últimos 25 anos a gente tivesse vivenciado um fenômeno que tem características positivas, mas também tem algumas externalidades, algumas consequências. Nós somos a capital do Brasil que teve o maior crescimento demográfico nos últimos 25 anos. E isso aconteceu sem que houvesse, em paralelo, uma estrutura de planejamento que pudesse preparar, que pudesse antecipar necessidades que essa nova população que ocupou a cidade passou a demandar. Eu diria que esse fenômeno de aumento populacional e aumento da participação econômica no cenário do Nordeste, a gente tem oscilado entre primeiro e segundo colocado do PIB, aqui como capital, não como região metropolitana, Fortaleza e Salvador. Ao longo dos últimos 6 anos, a gente tem revezado a primeira e a segunda colocação. Imaginando que somos uma cidade bastante jovem, de crescimento demográfico muito acelerado, esse é um fato muito marcante, é a centralidade econômica que Fortaleza passou a ocupar regionalmente, eu digo aqui no estado do Ceará, na região metropolitana, para outros municípios, mas também passou a ter uma referência para a região nordeste do país. Quando a gente pensa numa cidade como Fortaleza, que tem um aeroporto internacional, que tem um sistema de transporte público bastante bem integrado, que tem serviços públicos e privados de saúde e educação muito bem consolidados, a gente tem que pensar o futuro de Fortaleza tem que estar para além das fronteiras do próprio município. Prefeitura e governo do estado têm conversado muito sobre isso, a perspectiva de uma gestão e de um planejamento metropolitano da cidade. Saneamento, transporte, emprego e renda, saúde. Quantos irmãos, até porque há uma conurbação urbana muito forte e os limites não são muito claros entre Fortaleza e boa parte dos municípios que temos fronteira. Então, eu diria que esse estudo, para finalizar minha primeira participação, eu não li ele inteiro, eu recebi uma síntese do Moacir Maia, li aqui um pouco antes, e ele confirma, viu, João? Acho que você teve acesso também a um estudo do IPEA, se não me engano, de 2014, 2015, que coloca Fortaleza como a terceira região metropolitana em relação ao impacto em outro número de cidades impactadas pelos serviços públicos e privados, perdendo apenas para a região do Rio e São Paulo. Então, são estudos que caminham na mesma direção de uma metrópole influente para outros municípios, para além da própria capital.
Perfeito. Deixa eu aproveitar, já que você está na agulha, já para a gente começar a colocar temas mais complexos, né? Para a gente, principalmente o que vem acontecendo no mundo todo, é a pandemia. Ela vai trazer aí um novo redesenho, possivelmente, para as cidades. Esse vai estar na agenda de qualquer pesquisador que se preocupa com as questões urbanas, esse tema. A gente sabe que as cidades, elas crescem devido a um fenômeno chamado economia de aglomeração, ou seja, mais pessoas próximas ao serviço, você tem ganho de escala, aqueles serviços são oferecidos a preços mais baixos, o que torna
cheaper services because of the kind of wholesale.
Esses serviços, principalmente, isso acontece nas principais metrópoles, Nova York, Tóquio, São Paulo, por aí a gente vai. Então, a economia de escala, a economia de aglomeração é um ponto atrator para as cidades crescerem. Isso traz outros problemas paralelos, poluição, conturbação, aumento, né? Às vezes de violência, uma série de outras questões. Mas uma questão central hoje do debate mundial é a pandemia. E que a aglomeração, se ela tem um lado positivo, a aglomeração é exatamente o que está trazendo essas cidades importantes como Fortaleza, São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Manaus, cidades, especialmente Fortaleza, prefeito, que tem uma das maiores densidades populacionais do país. Além do que, o setor de serviços cresceu muito, como falei, e o setor de turismo, que exatamente é um vetor importante dessa transmissão do vírus. A pergunta quando tivermos uma vacina, um medicamento que podemos estar mais tranquilo, talvez a cidade não vai voltar a sua mesma estratégia de funcionamento. A gente não vai mais querer aglomerações em ônibus, em metrôs, em grandes espaços públicos. As pessoas perdem muito tempo no transporte de carro para o emprego, e agora se viu como home office que pode funcionar para algumas atividades, inclusive já existem indícios de ganho de produtividade. Então, todos esses elementos, eles acabam fazendo a gente pensar que talvez as cidades possam se transformar, como isso aconteceu ao longo da história. Basicamente, se você observar, as cidades sempre, elas, em algum momento, elas crescem para as regiões mais afastadas, e em outros momentos elas se concentram mais no centro. Então, há esse movimento natural. Como é que você imagina, prefeito, que essa pandemia possa trazer de lições para aqueles que vão governar as grandes cidades em nosso país?
Ataliba, eu diria até que a pandemia, ela desafia a própria lógica que todos os urbanistas construíram de qualidade de vida urbana. É exatamente o adensamento, a diversidade do uso do solo e uma mistura de residências, serviços, empregos, tudo dentro de um mesmo contexto geográfico que define o conceito de qualidade de vida. Tem um urbanista bastante famoso, Joao, não sei como é que fala, é o nome nórdico, né? Que criou um conceito, um livro famoso, uma cidade para as pessoas, em que ele
that he orients the urban drawing that about the premise that the public spaces and about interaction. The leisure, sport, the movies, the people's life could be in a distance that they can walk by foot. And then this concept, and in this moment, it's absolutely been challenged because of the transmission rate. So that's our challenge in facing the urban perspective. Oh, I'm very faithful that with the herd immunity or vaccine, we'll do that urban life come back to some kind of normal, but maybe only the basic things, but will have effects on the economy, a series of trends that have been incorporated. So they will sure not revert to be efficient to most part of people, but and somehow it will be incorporated. However, the concept of life quality so we have interactions of people, different habits, and different finalities. For example, the sidewalk, the new sidewalk that people use to go to in different ways. In this perspective, we have a program called Fortaleza 2014 that we have the reversion of something very typical from Fortaleza. It's a macrocephaly of one region of the city, causing the poverty or the weaknesses or all the potential urban centers. Of the first urban highway ring. So this valley is the macrocephaly that gives the most the source of tributes to Fortaleza. So and we implement more public service and will foster the local economies from other central potentialities of the city. We have the reference of the Bom Jardim neighborhood and aiming to transform that area in a central area. So, public transportation, private, maybe we can aggregate time. The local necessities of each community. And so we have this context in order to people to live, to work, to enjoy their lives in terms of urban spaces, or to not be to everybody will have to work in the central neighborhoods and the hospital, in the core of the city, the core of the downtown. But people will maybe opt in to be where they are. I think that's our challenge, and so the study is a chapter from Fortaleza, and then it refers to from 1972. So that's a pattern in terms of the first research until now. So that to modify this pattern of influence of some cities over other Brazilian cities, or over the country, we are more or less following a trajectory not very different from we've had years ago. We have other cities, other big cities influencing other Brazilian cities. Well, we didn't assess a very, very important study from the 2007 and this other one in 2018. So with this analysis, we see the growth, we see the increasement of big cities, and Florianópolis in doubt here. Oi, 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 teste, teste, teste. Oi, 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 oi.
Vão chegar nessas 15 metrópoles nessa rede, né? E Fortaleza cria
That connects in the state of Pará,
mais
Maranhão.
Teresina em São Luís
Piauí,
por
Teresina, and São
consequência elas
Luís,
criam
and
uma rede
consequently
de
creates a network.
essas outras
These other cities,
têm essa rede.
so that with
Essa
this
grande
network
mudança do último para esse foi o surgimento dessas
from the
E eu vou
a
na.
mudança
and
hierárquica
now,
dessas cidades.
Isso, mas eu indo na mesma
but
direção
in
do
this
prefeito,
direction of the
você
mayor,
acha que,
the same
agora já
direction
entrando no tema de
Mayor
pandemia
Roberto
novamente
Cláudio
para
said,
você,
and
você acha que a
you think
pandemia,
the
pós-pandemia, vai
pandemic or
trazer
post-pandemic
algumas mudanças
will bring
na,
more
na,
changes
na força
in
de
the
aglomeração
strength
que
of
vinha, né, em
agglomeration
curso nos
that
últimos
in
anos nas
course in
cidades
the last
brasileiras? Ou
years
seja,
of the city
será
of
que nós teremos
Fortaleza
agora uma força
will
de
have
desaglomerar
strength
em
of
torno
to
das grandes cidades
agglomerate
e aí buscando mais
in the big
regiões e mais
cities and
ações
now
da cidade, né?
searching for
Essa é uma
other
grande
regions
questão,
of the city.
inclusive
This is a big,
porque
big question.
há agora já alguma evidência de alguns preços
So we have
de
an evidence
imóveis
that some
localizados nos
prices
centros das cidades,
in the
escritórios, eles já estão perdendo
downtown, some
valor no
offices,
meio de aluguel, porque as pessoas, claro que aí
the
o
price, the
prefeito
prices of the
comentou,
rents.
a gente tem que esperar todo o
So we
efeito da
need
pandemia
to
para saber se vai se
wait
consolidar,
for the
mas
effect
poderá
of the
haver uma
pandemic to
tendência das
know
pessoas.
they can lose value. So I think it can be a trend the next years. I would like to listen to your opinion about it. And Mayor Roberto, so enter the debate here. So like we can make questions and answers. But in the first moment, the question of the pandemic, we've had the mystification about the remote work, the possibilities of gains in having the possibilities to have the work, the remote work. So one of the questions related to the agglomeration questions in the work, a new thinking about how this could occur, talking about the city's occupation, you had many times the search for some to live near your job, by questions of losing time in traffic, and the implementation of remote work. You maybe to release the burden over that neighborhoods with public transportations overloaded, and maybe you could find some solution towards this. Meanwhile, as the research doesn't analyze within the city, but the other cities, cities use the service, we can think about actions that people who use the services from the city with some time of agglomeration. So looking at the spreadsheet, we have a city in Ceará called Quiterianópolis, 330 kilometers from Fortaleza, and Quiterianópolis uses so lots of services from Fortaleza, for example, higher education and qualified health service. Well, this is a local center, but if Ceará had as understate capitals, you can release the burden from this traffic towards the state capital of Fortaleza. So you can look at and rethink and to try some actions that generate movement from into Fortaleza, those cities that search for services in Fortaleza. So trying these cities, we have other cities that have 200 kilometers to have access to the services, health, high complexity health services, but in all the population, you find this kind of, to search for this kind of service. So the main vector of attraction for the city, as we talked, and the majority of the studies, is the vector services. Vector services become an attraction of a region of influence because of this availability of services. And within the services, the industry of services, we have tourism as a big influencer. For example, information from IBGE about employment. In 2010, we had 50,000 people in the tourism. So the income in the tourism was 7 million and passed to nowadays 40 million. So the occupation of the hotels in 2010 was 66%, and today around 77%. So Fortaleza transformed itself in a city of the industry of service on the GDP representing 80% of the service, and mainly with the aerial hub. Fortaleza connects not only stronger within the city and also to the other countries. Well, turning back to the pandemic issue, how can we assure this better well-being, and somehow the population of Fortaleza started to feel, despite working from home, but easier locomotion, but people would like to, well, people had a gain in less traffic, for example, and you've been working on Fortaleza, so broadening the pathways, broadening the roads, the streets, the avenues, also lots of bike lanes and bike paths to people, and people, for example, could use the cycle lanes to go to work. For example, we can do some study after pandemic, but maybe these practices will continue after the pandemic. But my question is how to assure your management is finishing by the end of 2020, but the projection of the city after this, we should continue to offer this well-being toward this. How can we design a smart city in this perspective? And I would like to listen to your opinion, to your suggestions to the next managers, the next mayor. If you allow me, I'll talk about the tourism, mainly in this transition period we have today. It's very important to have investment in the service field in Fortaleza, and after we can approach the other question. It's very interesting, tourism, as we have in the economy that aggregates people. The tourism is being hit by this process of the disease transmission. So I think the best answer the public power can give to the return of the touristic activity is to give an extraordinary answer. An extraordinary answer for the tourism to have power and vigor as people to look at Fortaleza in some moment and understand that here the work of prevention over pandemic resulted in effective responses in immunity gain and security and safety in order to return to daily life almost normal. But for this, we need to continue this process that you've been leading with, in a very competent way. It's a process, like day by day return to a new normal based in sanitary in health criteria. So as much as we use criteria and very straight to this criteria, maybe sometimes people doesn't understand, and it's fair, doesn't understand, but tourism and other activities, they depend directly on this responsibility with we've been treating all the situation. So, and the tourism is one of the economies that generate more opportunity for a first job and gives a very important qualification for service qualifications. And in the touristic chains, the qualified youth to learn a second language in order to improve their capacity. So we have lots of good consequences, and we are natural for tourism. And we try to modify the quality in the city. We ask people, well, we know that people, when they come to a city, they want to enjoy all the facilities, all the good stuff we have to do, and by the beaches and all the parks, natural parks, and everything. So as much as the urban infrastructure is better, so the environment is protected, as much mobility structures and security and police service. So, and as much as the daily habits of the city are attractive, we will give more visibility towards a good tourism. And I've asked the question to a friend from Medellin, ex-mayor from Medellin, Aníbal Gaviria. I've been with him in 2015, and in his third year as a mayor. And when we walking through Medellin, it's a very transformed city. I had expectations in my head, about the drug dealers and lots of slums, but a city in 5 years been transforming. So we've had a plan, holistic plan, that we think about much before. If we don't have continuity after management, mayor after mayor, so we can have new ideas, but what we've had in Medellin is we've had no political hostility, not mayor not interrupting the previous work from other mayors. So we continue the good things, and we've elected mayors that they were not mediocre, so they were from the average to excellent mayors. And so, in all this context, a plan, commitment to the posterity, and good mayors, competent and committed to be good leaders. It's a mark at a city that in 25 years lived, so the promotion of peace and reduction of inequalities, and it's been a cycle. Each mayor had made a good job, and these things kept summing up and transforming Medellin. So we can't do urban transformation cycles without the commitment to the continuity, mayor after mayor. But going further, talking about urban mobility cycle paths, so making the streets and the avenues larger, and talking about legacy, how can we have cities more exigent, more demanding citizens to have more improvement in these areas? So I think the city gained the collaboration of technicians, of faculty members, and with efforts from the press. I remember that this first agenda about sustainable mobility, it initiated in São Paulo, so the richer city in Brazil, with the best faculty in Brazil and Latin America, and there has no political support for the continuity of those actions. And it's about democracy. I'm not criticizing. And when we plant a seed of an innovative idea, and then we foster the seed, we give the seed water, you know, and then we move towards progress, try to be an avant-garde city. So and then we try to improve the quality of life. But here we've been asking this in this agenda. We beat up lots of records in the cycle lanes and in new avenues. We have 130 kilometers of the exclusive lanes for buses. But now we are being charged, we are being demanded to do more. And so we planted the seed. And this agenda has been incorporated, and the city has embraced this idea, and I have been demanded to deliver lots of things till December, lots of ongoing works, and I would like to congratulate City for this spirit. So this, our press, our university, our influencers. So we had some skepticism, we have some criticism, okay, but the agenda has been embraced as an agenda of the people of Fortaleza, and then we can overcome another goals, new goals, okay? Joao, traditionally, historically, if I may say, São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, they have been the biggest influential centers. And in this research, you can see other dynamic centers in our country as Fortaleza, as Roberto Cláudio stated, in a way, from a point of view of the concentration, it's getting weaker. It's getting weaker from the Rio, São Paulo, de Janeiro. Do you think we're in this process of reduction of inequality, so deconcentration in São Paulo and Fortaleza? This research of yours, it can evidence it. Well, the research, when it starts, it identifies these big cities by the influence of the management, whether public or private. When you look at this influence in Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo, it has a big role, mainly in São Paulo, when you have the management talking about the private sector. So when you enter the public management, talking about the distribution of all the public actors, so like IBGE and others, you have a biggest concentration of these public bodies in Rio de Janeiro and Brasilia, because Rio de Janeiro was the former state capital of Brazil. So when you look at the articulations between the big cities, so you have a specific part of this articulation, and you have this very strong thing on São Paulo, Rio, and Brasilia, and you have the Fortaleza, for example, formation of an influence network, still regional, but has a relationship with other networks. Fortaleza has a link with Recife, for example, and Belém and Manaus. So you have all these structures. So you have a consolidation, yet to have a participation in a regional influence of Fortaleza, and you keep this question about national influence, so São Paulo, Rio, and Brasilia, because of the public management of the public network of services from the commands, from headquarters in Brasilia. So the headquarters of the public management, they depart from Brasilia, and in public and in the private sector, the commands, they depart from São Paulo. So in Fortaleza, you have some commands arriving to Manaus and Belém. So Mayor Roberto Cláudio have a big discussion around the world, and it's the concept of the smart city, using the new technologies, new digital technologies, social technologies to get this ready for the population. So we have a public sector that able to design these policies and to put them in practice. And it's a big challenge, not only by Fortaleza, but for all the cities in our country. So, Mayor Roberto, Cláudio, in this context, what Fortaleza has been doing in the last years, advancing in the smart city concept in order to keep going or reinforce itself as a center of big influence to other cities. We know that the services, mainly the digital services, they are an additional element of influence for other cities, so our economy can gain on this. I would like to understand how Fortaleza places itself in this moment and which are the biggest challenges for the future in this perspective for this research, and maybe next researches from IBGE. Fortaleza is even more influencer. Well, Ataliba, I recall my work in about management, this debate about this wide concept called smart city. So whether we adapt and take advantage of this moment, or whether we will be hit by them, because we have more and more connected cities, solving problems through their smartphones. They making consultations, making shopping, and using bank services. So personal services by the individual taxpayers in their hands, real time with lots of images. So whether the city, Fortaleza, takes advantage or will get hit. So we've created a foundation called City Model from a public body. So we have content and we can transform ideas on results. I would like to select some programs. For example, in the public transportation area, we have an app called New Bus. It's embedded the GPS of each bus on the city, so you can know where exactly is the bus you need to take, so and how much time it will lead to. And so if you, for example, work in commerce and you want to know the best time to go to the bus stop, you can use this app. So we have this. You only need to have a GPS inside a bus, and the user, the citizen, must have a cell phone with an app. And the buses itself, they have the Wi-Fi, embedded Wi-Fi. We have a Wi-Fi belt, where the second state capital in Brazil will losing only for Rio de Janeiro, or the second state capital of the biggest optic fiber networks, and we can use IP voice and image over IP, and with a lower cost to the education, to health, and to all the hoods within the city. We have a camera network with the integrated public security. So we integrated with the state network, and we have a program called SPIA, integrating all the images and within the city hall and the state government of Ceará to identify cars plates and everything, decreasing the response time of the police officers. So we have consultations distance, and so to the primary attention, for example, that we've been underestimating the internet use by the population. So, and we have all the victorious public policy in partnership with Sebrae. It's called Fortaleza Online. We are the state capital in Brazil that is where the citizens may perform upload and download of documents and have their authorization to work, for example, with their companies. So red tape So we are sparing 6 or 7 visits to the city hall, to deal with red tape. And so just to mention some actions of technology and embedment in order to save costs and to save people's time and to assure this new reality adaptation for the urban life. It's a new phenomena about this pandemic. So the digital and the digital solutions and the consumption of with the digital means. For example, iFood or e-commerce websites. So they have a new value in this towards this habit changing. So we have lots of questions arriving here. The production of the event asking me to make some questions. So I'll choose Cristiano Pena's questions. He's a faculty member of the Federal University of Ceará. A question for Joao. If this dynamic of the big cities consolidation, if it follows some pattern or no pattern, and it's completely heterogeneous. Can you answer that? Well, the pattern, I mean, if we could think in a first level of pattern, so these big cities, they have characteristics to be the state capitals. So letting alone Campinas in the countryside of São Paulo in this new tier of a big city. So to be considered a big city, must have a structure to be the endpoint of a network that concentrates in these cities, considered big cities. In case of Fortaleza, it's a big city with, in its network, 360 cities articulating within a network where Fortaleza is the core point. So this is one of the characteristics of this pattern. So we have a big city and we have a network, an urban network, where other cities come to this core city to search for services. So all the bias of this research is to identify and to the whole influence area regarding service searching and how these cities articulate themselves for this. So the first pattern we see about big cities that the characteristic, they are state capitals, but we have Campinas that is not a state capital. So we are going towards the 5 final minutes of our stream, and I would like to put maybe a final question to Mayor Roberto Cláudio. And he commented about telemedicine, importance of using the digital media on people's servicing. And another important point is distant learning. So the pandemic is anticipating in somehow the necessity of people to be connected, necessity to have access to internet, have access to connection points, to have computers or smartphones, or whether notebooks, laptops, any gadget that can access the internet and maybe an instrument for education as well. And I ask you, Fortaleza somehow it's improving its standards, educational standards towards this. We have an important challenge about poverty, about inequalities. So comparing to the reductions from last years, but we have important challenges, mostly about connectivity, people's connectivity to internet. So can we imagine what the City Hall is thinking about advancing this area since the pandemic anticipated a trend from the last years, but somehow we need to be more, we need to require more from us to to offer the students. We're talking about digital poverty, so people excluded from the Wi-Fi service, they will be excluded from services. So city must connect quickly towards this this problem. So I agree 100% with you that so the power of technology generates some excitement to give well-being and to foster habit changing, but it can foster also the inequalities amongst our people. We from the public power need to manage this and need to mitigate the bad results. So we've assembled this network of 550 kilometers of optic fiber. We have the potential to partner with the private sector to create a great to make this sign out to arrive with subsidies or almost free of charge to the endpoints, using this network to develop businesses. We are in partnerships with public-private partnerships, taking a Wi-Fi signal to lots of plazas and public spaces over the city of Fortaleza. We have 100% of bus terminals and bus fleet with Wi-Fi, and we are creating also conditions to private sector can cable up all the city of Fortaleza. So in this moment, we have two companies cabling up the most poor hoods. So in the rich areas, we have multiple cables competing, but we have in this very moment, so local capital investing in the poor hoods of the city, the cabling up their network to offer a quality service, internet, cable, TV. And Fortaleza is the second city most connected in the world. Well, with underwater cables, we have 13 underwater cables, making Fortaleza a hub, and we may be an asset to become a tech pole, tech center. We have Angola cables, for example, working already, and we have some leads to work in Praia de Iracema and Hood with digital services. We'll have a new facility where we had a famous restaurant before. So we have to try to attract the public and private services for small companies. And well, and as my final remarks, I would like to thank you for the invitation. A pleasure to be with Joao Azevedo and congratulate him by this extraordinary work of IBGE servicing our country, and also congratulate you, Ataliba, for your work with the Ceará Inteligente, being the inspiration to impact public services based on evidence, scientific evidence. So searching for the maximum results and the minor problems. So we had lots of themes here, but unfortunately we don't have time. I need to finish, and now I pass the floor to Joao for his final remarks. And once again, to thank your participation in this live, and with no doubt, this kind of work that IBGE elaborated, and not only IBGE, but so its work is it's very important for the planning works of the cities using this IBGE research, and congratulations. So, and after the pandemic, you're invited to come here to Fortaleza. Everything Mayor Roberto Cláudio told us, we can examine and we can confirm all this dynamics this Fortaleza, city of Fortaleza is presenting. So thank you very much for the opportunity. IBGE has a mission to give the clinical picture of the country and picture its reality. We have demographic or environmental, territorial, geographical. It's our field of work, but not only to give this set of data to the public management for the public policies, but also for the exercise of the citizenship. We have a historical series, reinforcing what you told, we have a permanent publication within our specified periods. We have specific periods that demand new urban hierarchy. They don't have a so quick change. So we think that periods of publications, to get in the proper time these alterations, but we have this historical series not only to support public policies, but to follow up the results. So thank you very much. Thank you again. We have a state unit also in IBGE, as in other units of the Federation, other state capitals of the country. We have it in Fortaleza, and we are at your disposal. IBGE is always at your disposal. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for debate, Mr. Mayor. Now I return the floor to the organizers, and I thank you again. Many questions, and I ended up not asking everything, as we needed to have much more time to explore all the questions. Thank you very much for your presence. So our